Hey everyone, welcome to Wishing Well BBQ. I'm Dustin Wells, and today I'm going to show you how to make the perfect smoked prime rib. Let's do it. Prime rib is one of those amazing meats that you can make on the smoker, especially around the holidays. If you watched my most recent video, you'll see that I got a $1,000 box of meat from Porter and York. And if you haven't seen that video yet, go ahead and click up here so you can check it out. Today, I want to show you how to make this beautiful prime rib roast on the smoker, and honestly it's not that difficult to make, and it's just going to be absolutely phenomenal. Let me show you what we got to do to get this prime rib ready for the smoker. I've got this beautiful 7-bone prime grade prime rib roast from Porter and York, and just check out the amazing marbling on this roast. You know this is going to be awesome. And the first thing I'm going to do is take some of my spaceman knives, and I want to go ahead and cut off this butcher's twine that's holding it all together. Then I just want to grab a paper towel and get it as dry as I can. That makes it a lot easier to trim. One thing that I was not prepared for was for these ribs to be butterflied off of the roast, but hey, you know what? That's okay. I'm just going to take my spaceman knife and I'm going to go ahead and cut those ribs right off of the roast, and that's going to give me a nice beef back rib that I can throw on the smoker later. If the bones are still fully attached to yours, that's okay. You can just leave those on or cut them off. Now that I've got these ribs off, I'm just going to take my slicer knife and I'm going to cut about 1/3 of this roast. I'm not going to cook the entire roast, but look how amazing this right here looks. Now I just need to do a little bit of extra trimming. Down here on the bottom where I've got a lot of extra fat, I'm just going to trim that back and get my roast nice and squared up and remove any of that silver skin that I don't want to chew on later. Now that I've got this roast nice and trimmed up, I'm going to add my seasoning, and the first thing I'm going to do is use some Worcestershire sauce as a binder and get that all over this roast. Now we're ready for some seasoning, and I'm going to use my Wishing Well BBQ Texas Cowboy rub. If you don't have this, you can use any SPG that you like, but you want to make sure that you coat this ribeye roast nice and heavy. This is a really big piece of meat and it can definitely take the extra seasoning. And make sure you get all sides of the roast. And now I'm just going to use my competition style rub just to give it a little bit of extra flavor and a little bit of extra color. Once we've got this roast nice and seasoned up, now we're just going to let it hang out right here on the cutting board while we get our smoker fired up. So let's go ahead and do it. Today I'm cooking on my Oklahoma Joe offset smoker, and I'm going to be using a combination of lump charcoal and hickory wood. I'm going to use my propane torch to get this fire started, and I want to get my smoker up to 250 degrees. It's been about 30 minutes since we fired up the smoker, so we're ready to put this ribeye roast on. We're just going to put it right on the center rack and bunch it up so it cooks nice and even. Today I'm going to use my ThermoPro TP27 to monitor these temperatures, and I'm going to stab it right in the center of the ribeye roast, and I'm looking for an internal temperature of 120 degrees. I've got 1 stick of butter and about 3 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce that I'm going to throw on the smoker, and I'm going to baste this prime rib every 45 minutes. All right, y'all, we've had this prime rib on for 3 hours, and just check that out. You can tell that we're starting to get some of that fat rendering right here because it's starting to pull back. And our internal temperature is sitting at about 120 degrees. So we're ready to take this off and let it rest for a few minutes before we sear it right over the coals. I'm gonna hit it one more time with this butter Worcestershire sauce mixture here right before we pull it off the smoker. That's just going to give it a little bit of extra flavor, and man, I'll tell you what, this right here smells so good. Let's take this off the smoker and let it rest for a few minutes before we put it right over the coals. Man, I've got to show you guys this prime rib so far because it looks and smells amazing. That looks so amazing. And honestly, I wouldn't have to sear this because the bark is nice and set. I think that will be nice to add a little bit of extra crust on this prime rib. Hey, let's put this right over the coals. Oh yeah, listen to that sizzle. We're just gonna let it sit here for just about 1.5 minutes and let it get a nice crust on it. Oh yes, that looks awesome. Let's put that back on. Let it cook for another minute. All right, let's give it just one more turn. You can see those flames kissing this prime rib. Let's give it another turn here. Let it get just a little char on there. We're gonna close it down for another minute. All right, it's been another minute and I'm ready to take this prime rib out. Just check out this amazing prime rib. Now, we're not done with this. We've got to let it rest. As we let it rest, we're gonna go ahead and drizzle some of this butter, Worcestershire sauce on there, and we're gonna at least let this rest for 10, 15, probably 20 minutes. And we're gonna wrap it up in the butcher paper. Man, I cannot wait to dig in. But again, the most important part of this cook is letting it rest. I'm just gonna dump the rest of this in here. Now let's wrap it up and let it rest. Oh man, I am so ready to slice into this prime rib, but before we do, let's talk about what we did to get here. The first thing we did to this prime rib was trim off any of that extra fat or silver skin that we didn't need. Then we used some Worcestershire sauce as a binder all over this prime rib. Then we seasoned it heavily with our Wishing Well BBQ Texas Cowboy rub and our competition style rub. Then we put it on the Oklahoma Joe offset smoker at 250 degrees using lump charcoal and hickory wood, and we let it smoke for about 3 hours until the internal temperature reached 120 degrees. Then we took it off of the smoker and wrapped it in butcher paper and covered it in some of that butter Worcestershire sauce mixture. And now here we are, and I tell you what, I can't wait any longer. Let's slice into it. All right, let's unwrap this prime rib and just check it out. Man, oh man, look at the bark on this prime rib. You can see that this fat is split right here, so you know it's nice and rendered. And just look at this pool of juice that's down here. How amazing does this prime rib look? It has such a beautiful bark. Man, it smells awesome. Hey, let's slice into it and see how we did. All right, we've got our Spaceman slicer here. Oh, it just cuts like butter. All right, the moment of truth. Oh man, look at how much juice is in that. Look at that right there, perfect. You can see that juice just flowing. Perfect medium rare. That looks amazing. Take a little slice here. Butter. Look how perfect that is. I'm gonna cut off a piece of this spinalis right here. Look at the bark on that. Hey, I'm ready to take a bite. Cheers to you. Cheers to a good cook. Let's take a bite. Dude. Oh my gosh. That is so phenomenal. I'm telling you, this is the best prime rib I've ever had, hands down. If you have never had prime rib, you have to try this recipe because it's gonna make everybody go crazy. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you like what we're doing here on the Wishing Well BBQ channel, make sure you click that subscribe button below so that you don't miss out on any of the fun. Make sure you also follow all of our other socials, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Thank you so much again for watching, and as always, we'll see you next time.